Welcome to Eagles Haven Ministry up in the upper room of beautiful Banning, California. This is Eliyahu coming to you live streaming on Ustream as well as YouTube, and also Eliyahu'sChannel and HaRuachEliyahu on YouTube. We thank you for joining us. All the Mishporka, all them that are the sojourners, the goyim. It's not Gentile, that's a Catholic word. You're a goy or a goyim, a sojourner coming in, a gorim, them that are getting grafted into the house of Yisrael. And we just welcome you today, and the opportunity we're going to have to share with you. We come before you reverently, humbly, in a very soft way to share with you the truth of Torah. When we were walking in the past in the Christian community, we used to throw things out. It didn't matter if we had 2, 3, 4 witnesses of the Scripture, and try to force things in the of the Scripture in order to mean something for a particular denomination, sect, or what I call commentary, oral, Talmud, denominationism, which we believe that denominationism is equivalent to the Catholic parishes of today. So what we're going to share with you today, it's going to be very powerful. We will re-edit this, but you're going to see the screen a little different. You're going to see me on the screen, off the screen. We're going to do a little experiment here with the eSword on a desktop presenter. So bear with us. If not, we'll go ahead and re-edit it and put it more professionally for you. And the topic of the day is the first day of the week, upon the first day of the week, or after the first day of the week. The 8 times specifically it is in Scriptures. There's been deception, should I say, not misunderstanding. There's a total deception, and it all roots all the way from the Roman Apostolic Catholic Church, before that the Greek Catholic Church, and then a forward march, you go into the Reformationists, which are the harlot daughters of religion, and then you go into the denominationism of Protestantism that are not really true Protestants. They're actually got so much doctrines of Catholicism, depending on all their offshoots, that they're still under the umbrella. Even Pope Francis last month said that all denominations of Christianity are Catholic still. They're just offshoot daughters. And we know what that means in Hazon, Revelation. Those are the daughter harlots of religion, offshooted out. And so we welcome you today, and we ask you to email somebody, text somebody, to tune in as we listen, as we teach you this message. Once you get the revelation of what I'm going to share with you, just like we just finished Galatians, Galut, and who they were, that they were Greek-speaking Hebrew Israelites that were of the diaspora that were scattered. Well, what we're going to show you today will just open your eyes to the Word, especially when you look at the original Hellenic Greek and the original translations. There's so many translations out today. It is totally amazing how people are getting away with it. But of course, in the English language, there's so much garbage in the English language, and people are getting away with it. It becomes part of the breakfast table conversation, and this false language we speak, they call Ingles or Angloland or England, but it's actually German French formed in Latin letters with a mingled of a little bit of Native American clean words that was here already in this nation when we got here. So we're going to go ahead and proceed in Matthew chapter 28 verse 1. I will not be speaking on the topic today because in this topic, in these verses, sometimes people there's some verses of understanding on his resurrection. We do not believe on the Catholic Good Friday, Friar Day, the pagan god Friar. We do not agree with that, and the 1.5 days to the resurrection on Sun God Day, and opening, when they have their S-Star holiday in the Christian community, they actually go up there to Sunday worship, and the sun comes up, and that's straight up paganism to all the way down to the bone. But we're not going to focus on that teaching. I'll be doing a teaching later on the proper week of the feast of the high week, the high Shabbat, which is an intermission. What is Shabbat? Shabbat is the number 7. 21 countries in the world still use the word Shabbat for the 7th day of the last day of the week. The Gregorian calendar that we've been adopted in the United States in late 1800, between 1860 something and 70, and some countries didn't even adopt it until the 1930s and 40s. It's amazing. And even today, 4 countries have disowned and cut off the Gregorian Catholic calendar of late 1500. This calendar, what it does, it just totally takes us off focus of a real Hebrew calendar, of the calendar of the earth. Because how many of you know it is not 2014? It is totally not. It's in the civil calendar is 5700, and in the calendar of the earth it's in the 59999. Some say it's already in 6003. Some say 7, depending on the school of thought in Israel, where they're doing the educated studies of keeping the calendar coordinated for the earth. And it's called the calendar of the earth. NASA, a few months ago, made a proclamation that if they would, all the countries would agree, they would get rid of the Gregorian calendar. It's so off, it's so out of course, but nobody wants to change because it takes money and expenses, and it would also kill pagan holidays. And holiday are 2 pagan words. Holy is a goddess. It's in Latin. It's for a goddess that's celebrated big time in other parts of the world with big celebration of spirits. And also day is Da, which is another part of a European deity that they used to worship. So, but we call it celebration. We call it feast times. Yom is a clean word in Hebrew, and to replace the word da or day of the pagan German word. So we say Yom. So in the feast day, celebrations, they've been mislined up because of this Gregorian calendar, and most of the countries are trying to readjust and put it together. NASA made a calculation, and they said at the time of 2,000 years ago, at the time of 4,000 years ago, the clock system, the way the earth is expanded and the way everything's rotating, we are actually in a 23-hour and 59 plus something minutes in an hour, and then in a day we're in the 23 hours, we're not in 24, and never have, and they have to add a second day, 24-hour period in March to create this 365-day calendar. And NASA says we can go to the calculated atomic clock calendar with 364 days or yoms in a year, which in Hebrew mindset, that's the way it's coordinated, through 364. And so we're not going to get on the calendar. We're not teaching on the calendar. I just threw that in as a little dessert, a little candy of information. So as we begin to study this, the first day of the week, what does the Christian community hold so precious to continue to worship on Sun God Day? Why do they keep doing it? Well, they have 2 or 3 witnesses of scriptures that they have to force literally the information in there and dictate with commentary on their Bibles. Commentary I call oral information, man-made add-ons. And the Jews started the oral law, the oral Talmud, and then the Christians went off, Catholics went off with it, with their commentary. And I demonstrated it a few weeks ago with the Galatians how much add-on oral information is on, even in the different King James scriptures and other translations. And if they're just leave it alone clean, that the scriptures will be clean with a good reference in the middle of chain reference, and allow the Ruach to speak to people, then they will not be persuaded by denomination mindsets of men, okay? Which I boldly call all denominations of the Harlot Catholic Church, Catholic parishes. The Pope made that announcement in May, in which you can go online and look up Pope Francis and Kenneth Copeland and Tony Palmer and all this thing that's going on with the New World Order and the economical movement going on. Every week it's been tense going on in Israel, and to Israel is what we look on Mount Zion, not Zion, Zion, and we're looking at what's going on the play of the New World Order and the false prophet and the beast and everything lining up in Israel right now, with them signing agreements with Obama, preparing themselves for what they're about to present. Yeah, Israel's going to be ground zero. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on bad, real bad at Israel, and a lot of people are against it in Jerusalem. They're not for their government's opinions and decisions. Just like in the United States, we could vote, but do we really get our vote? And, you know what I mean? They're going to do what they're going to do anyhow. We can get loud. We could be the door that squeaks. They'll throw a little oil to shut us down, and then we come back, but they're still going to creepazoid and creep in their policies and garbage of the New World Order. Over and over, all around you, Windows has created this new antivirus software that's called Zeus. Zeus, that's J-Man, Jesus. It's Zeus. And they got this Zeus, and satellites are calling themselves the revolution taking place in Iraq is ISIS, you know, a deity they sacrifice human lives to. So all around, there's different things you're seeing popping up on web, you know, the Babylon type of system of search finder in the computer. All these words are popping up in the media, in conversations. People are naming their children these pagan deity names again, rising up of these pagan mighty ones in the words of lips of people, and they don't even know what they're saying out of their mouth. But we take heed, the house of Yasharel. We take heed, them that are grafted in, to the roots of the house of Israel. Christianity should have never existed. It was all by Peter Magnus. Simon Magnus, is actually a Latin word. Magnus is Latin, and it means a great one, a great sorcerer, a great wizard. And so it's a Pata Magnus, and he was the false one. He was not really Kepha. Kepha is a different person than Peter Magnus, the one they have the body in the Vatican. Yahushua, our Savior, is a different, complete, resurrected Hebrew Messiah than the J-Man, than Jesus. Jesus is a Catholic word, Jesu or Isu from the Jesuits. It's a created word in 15 and 1600, and they want us to worship in another direction. The devil always wants us to worship. He created idols. It says in the scriptures, them that worship idols do not worship the idol, but demons. And in our ministry of deliverance, we have seen with our eyes and also did spiritual warfare, and we will see the idol and see demons behind the idol. So when people bow and worship it, the demon is disguising himself with an image and an idol to gain the worship. In the same way, there's this false Armageddon, this false Messiah that's coming on the world. It has been packaged in the name of Christianity, a Catholic word, 100% Catholic word. And when all the time we were supposed to be grafted into the house of Israel. Our Messiah, Hebrew Messiah, Yahushua, when he was presented himself to Shaul on the road called Straight, he said, "Who are you?" He asks him, Shaul, and he says, "I am Yahushua Nazir." The word "of" does not exist in the original Greek. And they say Nazareth, but when you look at the original Greek, where it's Nazareth, it means a covenant watchman of the word, a Nazir. In English, sounds better with the Greek, is Nazaraim. So in other words, he called himself, after he resurrected, a Nazarene, a keeper and a watchman of the word. That sect was going around since the days of Samson. Samson was a Nazarene, kept the Nazarene oath. And on through history, after Samson, you can follow the sect of those particular clans of people, and eventually the essence that buried the Dead Sea Scrolls that are rising up today with so much information in our face. And I'm going to give you a little cliffhanger probably this week, maybe next week. I'm going to have a guest. Eliyahu'sChannel is going to be our guest, and he's going to teach us on the 6 chapters of Galatians with the Hellenic Greek right there beside, from the Dead Sea Scrolls, so you can see it personally, how much tampering of the scriptures going through the unkodesh, the unclean hands of the Roman Apostolic Catholic Church. And the Reformationists did not bust a grape to get the root of the scriptures to correct it. But we thank Yahuwah and Elohim and Yahushua, our Mashiach, that these things are coming out of the Dead Sea Scrolls. We're able to see it ourselves and compare it and say, whoa, the letters have been messed with. You know, it's that old saying, one person said, yeah, John's coming in one day, and the other person, yeah, he's coming in 1 hour, another person, he's coming any minute. You know, that rumor of gossip that goes around and it changes the conversation. So we're going to go ahead and begin in Matthew 28, and you're not going to see me now. You're going to see the screen of Esau, chapter 28 of Matthew, verse 1. it says, in some translations, it would say a little different. It says, in the day of the Shabbat, as it began to dawn toward the first day of the week, came Miriam Magdalene and the other Miriam to see the tomb or the sepulcher. Okay? So it's Tophas in the grave in Greek, Roman Greek. Now, the first part we're going to focus on in the end. The word in, the words in, the is not, it's a filler word. Those are English filler words for conversation. Okay? It's in, 3796. And it basically means, it's opsa, which means evening, in the end of, or the close of a yom. The close and extension after, or a close of a day. It's kind of broad how it's put. If you put of, the, in, or other words in front of it in English, what you're doing now, you're distorting the conversation completely. Just like I said, Yahushua the Nazir, and they say Jesus of Nazareth, like he's from that city. And the city didn't even exist. It's one of the most laughable things in Jerusalem. The city didn't even exist until Constantine went down there. His mother went down there, took bones and did magic and threw it on the ground and pointed, there's Nazareth, build the city. And they didn't even start building to 460 something, 500 to 600. But the clans of the Nazirs, or the Nazarene, were 7 to 9 clans. That's all they know. And they would nomadically travel these areas where the caves were, and they would hide these scrolls in these different locations. The Dead Sea Scrolls they found in Qumran is not the only place. It's probably scattered everywhere. And probably they found more, but they're too scared to bring them out because it's exposing what's been going on for the last 15, 16, 1800 years of translations and adding on man-made opinion. Excuse me. So it says at the end, Shabbat, dawn, first week. That's the only thing that's in the Hellenic Greek or the original Greek. It says Shabbat, dawn, toward, first, day does not exist. The word day does not exist. I told you that's a German word. It's an add-on word. It's not Greek, Hebrew, Latin, or nothing. Hebrew will be Yom, and Greek it's another word. Okay? So, of the Shabbat, or Shabbaton, or the extension of the fullness of the seventh day, which will be where we get Sabbath, or it would be Shabbaton, the whole week, the 7-day period count. Okay? So the word day does not even exist. As he looks and points the cursor to the word day, it's not there. It's in the Strong's Hebrew Greek Concordance. Christians can go to it. Now look at this. I got my King James here. Okay? Oh, my King James. We used to love this book and say it was so, you can eat off it. It was so clean. Come on, give me a break. It's paper. It's ink on a piece of paper. Okay? Now, it is Kodesh to the person that reads it, and it comes through the filter of the Hekel. They call temple, which is it's actually a pagan place, but Hekel in Hebrew is a more cleaner word. Okay, so now it says, in my King Imus is the same what you're seeing on the screen, exactly the same. And the word day is italics, telling you it's not in the original Greek. In the front of your preface of your scriptures, it would say, if it has italics, it's not original. If it has brackets, it is a more darker print of ink to focus on that passage script. So he'll tell you when you read, it's like getting a manual for a car. And most people don't read their manuals, and we've all been guilty of buying cars and not reading our manuals. Then we learn our lesson later, and we read them now. I remember when I got my daughter her first car, he says, you're not driving it, you read the manual. She said, what? You're going to sit there and read that manual first. She said, Dad, daughter, you know what I mean? So she read the manual. After she read the manual, she was very happy because she had found friends that had the same car. They didn't even know how to change the flat. They didn't know where things were, or little reset buttons and things like that for the tires. And so it was very knowledgeable to read the manual. Well, in our scriptures, we have a preface. In English, they call it preface. because it's spelt that way, but in the original language of the German language, it's called preface, okay? And so the word day does not exist. We're going to now go to, that's the first passage of Scripture. Now remember, Shabbaton is 76. And it's mentioned twice in this verse, but it's also, in this verse it's once. But in the verse, it's talking about the Shabbat. Now we're going to go to scriptures that it talks about the first Sabbath after Pesach, or Passover, as they say in English, or between two Sabbaths. Because you see, if you don't read the word according to the time of the season of what's going on, if you're not reading that it was a Passover, there was a Shabbat, and he was going to be in the grave 3 days and 3 nights. Remember, our Mashiach said, the sign of I am Moshiach. I stand alone. Moshiach means he stands alone as the rubbed in oil anointed one. He stands alone as the sovereign of Yahuwah. And we don't use the word king, the ing, and all that stuff, because that's all King James, British, European, German, and he brings bondage on people, because king and kingdom is based on taxes, levies, and tolls. In Israel, we have sovereignty. All the Middle East, the New World Order, are destroying sovereignty in those Muslims' lives, and I don't like that, even though I don't agree in their religion. It is wrong to go and take people's sovereignty away. They did that to the Native Americans of the United States, taking their sovereignty and bring in kingdom principles. He said, we're going to come in, and we're going to take your land. We're going to let you live in it, but you're going to be taxed, tolled, and levied. Straight up, what they're doing to us is what they're doing to other nations of the world to form the New World Order. Now, let's look at Mark 16, verse 2. And we're going to give us a moment as we switch it. You're going to see it on the screen being switched. Chapter 16. Verse 2. If you're tuning in for the first time, because I see my email, there's a lot of newcomers coming in, and thank you, brother, Mountain Man from Tennessee. Right on, brother, like your beard, and all the people you're bringing in to understand and learn the Tanakh and the Torah and the right ruling and the understanding of language. And we just enforce you and look at my wife's music, download it. If you want me to mail, if anybody want me to mail my wife's music to you, we would mail for free so you can practice and learn the songs with guitars and everything, and do it on your own or join in with the songs with my wife. That's free to go out. Freely was given and freely to go out. We don't put price tags on our things. Chapter 16, verse 2, and it says this: Very, gotta agree, early in the morning. Oh, wait a minute. Only one word, and there's 3 words in English here. Only one word in Greek is 4404, and it means to dawn, break, watch, early morning. Okay? The happens to be here in it's a whole head too. Whenever you see that, it can be used in different ways in the Greek. First, again, Mia is there. Day does not exist. Of the he too. So that's a the. So day of does not exist, the does. Then week, they came unto the sepulchre of the rising of the sun. Now, when you look at this, the sepulchre, it's in the Greek, at the rising, but no, it's just rising. And in here, it's an otelo, which means is the rise or the early point, the spring of rising of the Helios. Okay? And so, it shows right here again the word day, the German word, does not exist. It's not even Yom. It's not even the Greek word equivalent. It does not exist. It's an add-on word, and it was actually added on with what they call the Latin Vulgar, the Latin Vulgate, and then it came in with the other German translations, and then they put it together with King Imus. They did not try to correct anything. They actually just passed on a little accent European Catholic Bible. Actually, they left out different commentaries, but that's what it is, was what it is. Let's go to verse 9. Now when it says, I'm going to go ahead and read in King James. Now when Jesus was rising early, the first day of the week, he appeared first to Mary Magdalene, out of whom he had cast out 7 devils. In the King James, the word Jesus is not here because it's in italics, even in your King James. When you turn to it, and you look at verse 9, it says, now when he arose, now in this King Imus I have, the name is not there. Jesus or Jesu is not there at all. Okay? And in as you see right now in the screen, the word Jesus is not even there. So now when risen, original Greek, early, proi is there, first, protos, foremost, time, place, beginning, best, chief, former. Day is not there. And this Shabbaton, he appeared first to Mary Magdalene. And it's not this first day of the week, Sun God Day. You know, you still find people I run into, and I say, I'll see you, they talk to me on Yom Shishi, and then that's one of the days of the week in Hebrew, and then I say, oh, I'll see you on the first day of the week. And they go, what's that? You mean Monday? No. You ever looked at your Gregorian calendar? The first day of the week is your Sun God Day. And a lot of people don't look at the calendar to see how it's set up. It's set up that you can see it in your face. In other words, they're not lying to you behind little closed concussion things. They're in your face lying to you. And because of passed down, dumbed down education, most children know what their parents know and know what their parents know. And unless they're taught, they're shipwrecked in their information out of course. And if you're just a little degree off on that rudder, you're shipwrecked and end up way off course completely. So this is the second passage in 16:9. And he says, early, first, Shabbaton, he appeared to Mary Magdalene. So there's 2 schools of thought. Was it sunset to sunset? Was it at the sundown of when the Shabbat begins to some of the Jewish people in the community of Israel, where it doesn't base on 12 midnight to start the new day and based on the evening? Or even if it dawned on Shabbat early in the morning, it's still not Sun God Day. Hello? It still doesn't line up to the first day of the week of the worship of the sun. They worship on Resurrection Day, they call Estara. So it still doesn't line up if it's in the evening on Friday or if it is on the early, because in some school of thoughts we know, we're all working out this understanding. Some believe that because day is part, in Hebrew is Yom, that means light, the break of light. So in some schools of thought, they believe that sunset to sunset is for Shabbat, but we know that's only for the feast, because in the feast it's just Yom, it's just the daytime. The Shabbat is the day. So we're not going to get into that. That's not the part of teaching we're doing. But in Shabbat evening, it could be a break of day. But here it's talking about a little bit of light or going into the new Yom. All right? So it's still not Sun God Day. All right? It's still not giving you a witness. You got to understand it. We're going to go through all 8 of these verses very quickly. And in order for a teaching to become a doctrine that you live by, it has to have 2 or 3 witnesses, by the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses. And I don't mean by 2 or 3 witnesses of your elders of your denomination. And I don't mean by the so-called prophet liars of your denomination that happen to speak a word above the word and say, this is the way it is. This is the way it's interpreted. No, the word is very plain and very basic. You got to turn pages to find the witnesses, but the witnesses are there, and they always witness one to another, okay, because it's the same Ruach. Now let's go to Lucas chapter 24:1. And he's going to show you again on the screen. And it says, now, not upon, because upon is a filler word. Now, hohetu in Greek, 3588. First, mia, day does not exist. Of does not exist. Mia again, 3588, Shabbaton. Verily, early in the pathos. And you know, the root of pathos, where it says very early in the morning. Now look at this. Very early in the morning. 4 words. But the only word that's there is pathos. And this word basically means, could be going down, literally or figuratively. Deep, very early. So in other words, it could be like when Shabbat is ready to begin in the evening to evening. If a person believes in evening to evening, a time frame for Jerusalem, then it will be evening to evening. So it'll be Friday night, if we were going to use the Gregorian thinking. Friday night is when they came to the sepulcher, bringing the spices which they had prepared and certain others with them. All right, so now let's look at Eliyahu'sChannel chapter 20, verse 1. Chapter 20, verse 1. John, Eliyahu'sChannel, Yochanan. Other parts of the world, they still say it right. They don't cut the name short because the name has phonetic sounds of Naba acts. They say prophetical acts, but a name spoken out to a person that was given to them of their given name tells them their character, who they are, and it shapes our character. So hubcap, Pepsi Cola, Short John don't have those words don't have meanings unless you're going to name your child Pepsi and you're going to think of Pepsi Cola or hubcap. I used to lift weights with a guy named Hubcap, and I said, dude, is that your real name? He said, man, my dad was drunk that day and named me Hubcap. You know, I had biker friends. They called me Knucklehead from the jump, and it wasn't because I had a hard head. It was because my dad rode knuckleheads. You know what I mean? And it's sad they get that handle, but it does have a meaning, but it's only modern. It doesn't have something spiritually intact to inherit in them. Okay? Now, chapter 20, verse 1. Now, on the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene went to the tomb early while it was still dark, and saw that the stone had been taken away from the tomb. Stone, already gone. She gets there to the resurrection. He's already resurrected. Did not happen Sun God Day. All right? And this is the basis of what Christians use in order to keep a fundamental doctrinal belief system that they're supposed to have their 7th day on the first day of the week. It's actually a oxymoron, if I should say, or a contradiction. Because the word Shabbat is the 7th day, the 7th Yom. It means 7. Okay, just like Pentecostal means 50. Well, Shabbat means 7. So how could you say, well, I'm having my Shabbat on Sun God Day? Well, that's the first day of the week, dude. That's a contradiction. Well, I'm having Shabbat every day. They clean it up and say, we're having Shabbat every day. I say, yeah, right. See how long, who's going to put food on your plate? You know what I mean? And so we're looking at chapter 20. And I'm going to go and do it with the and the is there, 3588. First is there, Mia. Day of does not exist. The does, week does not, does exist, and is Shabbaton. And you notice it's related to the Hebrew origin 7676, which means Shabbat. A day of the week response is it's basically interval between 2 Sabbaths. Likewise, the pearl in all the above applications, Sabbath Yom, or Sabbath week. On the first Shabbat comes Mary Magdalene early. It says early. Okay, how do you change that? It's proi in Greek. In Greek, it's the dawn. It's the invocation of the break of early morning. And some, in the Hebrew mindset, like I said, they say, well, even today in Jerusalem, they begin their day on Friday evening. When Shabbat's over, Friday evening, Shabbat evening, we call Saturday, the Saturday. I hate to use those words, but I have to demonstrate with you. When it gets to around the sun breaking the walls of Jerusalem, and the sun's going down, we do the same here. When the sun goes over to the mountain, there's no more shadow. The shadow is created. So Sabbath begins maybe an hour early for us than, or ends an hour early for us than Los Angeles. Okay? In Israel, it's based on the Jerusalem wall. When the shadow comes or the shadow goes, and that's the time frame. In Jerusalem, we have to get our food and everything done before 3 o'clock. The buses stop by 3:34, and then you're walking with groceries to prepare for Shabbat. And then you still got a few hours before it's dark, but in some areas it's already began, depending on the shadow of the darkness of the mountains and the hills, and also Jerusalem. And it's very beautiful to see it, the order of it, and it's very wonderful to be in Jerusalem, and everybody is doing everything according to the word. Orderly. All right? So, like I said, you don't see no Santa. You don't see no Easter bunny eggs in the stores. You don't see none of that stuff where you're at. You don't see that. There's nothing there unless you go out of Jerusalem to find the garbage. Then you can search and find it among the Christian Catholics. Okay? But you don't see it. And everybody's doing Shabbat together because everybody's on the same system. When Shabbat ends on Saturday evening, they go out and picnic, and then the young boys and girls that are being courting, and they have chaperones, would go and they'll be picnicking in the grass, looking at Jerusalem, doing prayers, and they got their chaperones behind them. It's really wonderful to see that going on. And then you see all the Hayim, everybody. Hayim means all the lives, the beings of Jerusalem coming out when Shabbat's over, and they watch the final closure of the darkness come in, and they're celebrating. Stores open, and people are eating, having fun. But the next morning, Sunday morning, guess what time it is? You hear the jackhammers, the bus is going, everybody's working because they're lining up on a full, proper 1 through 7 days of work days and calendars. Okay. As a matter of fact, if you remember, I remember when I was young, they made a new law to give us 2 days a week, because back when I was young, there was a 6-day work day. Most jobs, you work 6 days a week. Okay. And you still get 40 or you can get 50 hours. There wasn't overtime, time and a half. You got to have a really cool job to get all that. You know, because I remember working at McDonald's $1 an hour, and it was a 6-day work period. Okay? And it was 10 hours a day, $1 an hour. And believe me, that was pretty good back then, And then we found out what they put in the food. Now, we don't want it, And I'm surprised. It probably have been different. It was probably different back then than it is today. It probably didn't have all the GMO garbage, All right. So early, broyi. Now we're going to go to verse 19, same chapter. And then we're going to get to the cookies and the candy of this, where we're going to start seeing it, because Christians hold this value of Sun God Day worship, the first day of the week worship, and we're going to start seeing it coming in. But I just want to tell you all the 8 places it's located. The word day does not exist. It's a German word. It was added later in the Geneva translations of Martin Luther, and it was hitchhiked in with the Reformationists and the Protestant movement, and everybody just keeps it there. Your King James Bible has italics. You can have Bibles now. They won't even show you the italics. They won't show you the words that are not in original Greek. They won't have the blocks. They won't have nothing. They just print it, and they take it for the truth. And that's not right. Because even in legal systems, in the law of man, they'll show you what's written in law, what's proven of law, and it's a part of the lettering and the writing in the legal system, so they can prove cases. And here it is, our scriptures. At least King James put but the information, but you got to read the preface to know what you're reading. Because if you don't read the preface, you're just going to read it and think that's what it means. And then somebody's going to tell you, and quack, quack, okie doke, you're going for it. Okay? I remember the first time I was invited to a Sun God Day Estara. I didn't feel right. I believed in Shabbat because of my Hebrew roots. I believed in the 10. I tell my Baptist friends in Assemblies of God, I said, we're buddies, we're preaching the good news, but I'm telling you right now, man, I have my Shabbat on Shabbat, and I believe in the 10 marriage covenant, 10 word covenant. That 10 commandment is still today. If it ain't, then try to go ahead and get rid of those 10 laws, the 36 and 70 something laws in humanity's law system, and you get rid of it, and how many people are going to be killed, how much increase of breaking the consciousness of blushing conscience of the 10. And of course we know they took the 10 commandments out of schools and they're taking them out of the courthouses. Some cities and counties like Riverside, other places, they refuse to do that. They won't do it. They refuse to do it, and they still open in prayer. It might be Christian, but they refuse to get rid of the 10. And as long as they keep the 10 in there, Yahuwah gives them a space of favor because they're doing the right ruling according to the 10. When they kick the 10 out, guess what happens to that city? All kinds of wickedness comes in. Demonic wickedness comes in. That's why, like in Texas where I live part-time, you don't see guys trying to jack girls' car Escalades. They'll get shot in the face. The girl's packing a gun. All right? Good guns, bad guns. Good people got good guns. Bad people got bad guns. And if you try to steal something from them and take it, they'll give it to you if they'll let you. But you ain't going to take it. Okay, and all the criminals, what do? They go to New York, Chicago, California, because they could get their stuff under the criminal world, and they can do what they want, and they have no reverence or fear of terror that somebody's going to whip something out of them and say, hey, brother, you better chill out and go somewhere else with that. You're not going to rob us today. And so once that happens in a city, then they back off. When there's right ruling, when there's the Word, the Torah, the 10 Commandments in its system as a foundation base, the Yahuwah sends His Ruach to make sure that the land has reverence and respect for His Torah, for His Torah, His right ruling of the marriage covenant, the 10-word marriage covenant. They call a nickname in English the commandments. Verse 19 again. Okay. He said, then the same day at evening, being the first day of the week, when the doors were shut, where the disciples were assembled, for it says fear, but that's a demon. It's really it's phobia. They had claustrophobia of the Yehudi. Yeshua came and stood in the midst of them and said to them, Shalom be unto you. Or in other words, Asam Alinkum. A Shalom Alinkum. That's what he said to them. Okay, Muslims didn't make that up. The Hebrews were speaking it long before. It's an Aramaic. It's an Aramaic saying. Okay, then the same day at evening, being the first day, does not exist. Does not exist. Shabbaton. When the doors were shut, where the disciples were assembled for fear or phobos, okay, of the Yehudi, Yahushua stood in the midst and said to them, Shalom Aleikum. Okay? In Hebrew it's different. It's humim. I mean in Greek, humim. And it's like to you. Shalom to you. So, even in this passage here, they're meeting together. It's the first Shabbat. They're meeting together, and they're praying, there's interceding, there's a resurrection going on, and he greets them. And Christians they put the word day. It's the first day of the week. See, hey, they're meeting. The Messiah resurrected. It's a new dawn. The church is born. Hello? What? What do you mean? We're going to read it in John. Church wasn't born. Circe, Latin, Kirky, Greek, the German word, Kokoyan. You mean the circle building where women sell their bodies as female prostitutes to Greek deities? Circe? No, it is Iglesia. It is the called out ones. Even in the Greek, it's clean word. Iglesia is a clean, beautiful word. Okay? And then they turn around and add the word churchy, Circe, a place of adultery, all kinds of wickedness. Let's go quickly to Acts. Mashi or Hechos in Spanish. And we're going to go to chapter 20. It is so sad how many groups, they start off right, They get an idea, they offshoot, and then man comes in and puts his commentary, oral information, and then says, this is it. We are in the seventh similarity. Hear me. This is called the seventh similarity and the last similarity. Okay? Where Yahuwah, his Shem, Yahushua, his Shem, the Shabbat and the feast have surfaced again. In 1800, people were searching the scriptures. There was a Bible school group in Philadelphia and other places of the East Coast, and they were coming together and they were saying, wait a minute, his name is not L-O-R-D, that's a pagan word, it's supposed to be Jehovah. And they said, well, it's got to be a Y because J's didn't exist. But see, so people were getting some truth and having excitement. And then the Church of God in Christ started having Shabbat and started having the Ten Commandments and doing all things. And then when they realized that they didn't have the dinero, the money coming in like they were, and they stopped the Christmas and they stopped the Estar and they stopped all the pagan things, in 1900 they went back and they fell back in the trap. Okay? So from that offshoot of Bible study groups, the Seventh-day Adventists, the Jehovah's Witnesses, everybody was getting a piece of truth, and they were going their way, and then man comes in and starts doctrinating them and forcing them to be in this box of denomination. Denomination is a system of like degrees of knowledge, of master's degrees and degrees of knowledge. Denomination is the 100 is over the 50 is over the 20 is over blah, 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 blah. And the dollar bill has the name of the deity, Gush, the prosperity deity, the money of fortune, the German deity on the dollar bill, who they worship. In Gush they trust, in good they trust, in good they trust. Excuse me for using those words. And that's on the dollar bill. It wasn't put there to the 56 or 59. The earliest was 1830 something on a 2 cent. And we haven't used 2 cents for a while. We used to have a half a penny. And, in early 1800, that didn't go very well for a while. And so, but they had, people used to say, you don't give God 2 cents. In other words, because everybody had quarters and dollars, you know what I mean? And so, and then they put it in the 2 cents, then they put it in an nickel, and then they put it in a quarter, and it wasn't until 50-something they put it in the money with the pyramid of announcing the New World Order. Telling you in your face who they worship. In G-O-D we trust, with a pyramid and an eye. In your face. And you want to call the creator G-O-D? That is your creator then. That is your mighty one of the German deity Gush and Gott. The fortune that in Britain they still do human sacrifice. In the United States we do sacrifice. It's called abortion. It's called sending men to unlawful wars and battles to shed blood. That's sacrificing to the goddess Victoria, Athena, all these deities that demand war and blood and all the evil that goes on, unlawful wars going on. These are sacrifices of human beings' lives because of the mighty one on that particular picture on that currency paper that don't have the gold to back what it is today. So as we look at this, we've seen, I got a little off course there, but let's look at Acts 20, verse 7. I'll give you some little candy information. If you're first time tuning in to Eagles Haven Ministry or Eliyahu'sChannel, you can go to my archives on YouTube or Eagles Haven Ministry and you can look up the topics we're talking about. It says here in verse 7, and I want to turn it, I'm going to turn it into, I'm going to go to it in what the King James do. I'm going to do both for you can see it. You're going to see it on the screen. And now on the first Shabbat, when the disciples came together to break bread, Shaul, ready to depart the next day, spoke to them and continued his message until night. There were many lamps in the upper room where they were gathered together. Now, Christians use this particular as one of the witnesses. See, resurrection, Messiah's resurrection. The Circe is born. No, Circe is not born. Underneath that word Circe is ecclesia, is a clean Greek word, and part of it is synagogue, and called out ones, watchmen of the word, the righteous ones, the set-apart ones, the Kodeshim ones. That's what it means under there. It's not Circe. So the church was never born. It was the Iglesia. Iglesias have been here. The called-out ones have been here. Right? The set-apart ones have been here. The Kodeshim ones have been here. Okay? So it wasn't born then. It was already existing. It was just getting refreshed with a Ruach Kadosh, because the feast of Shabuat, which they nickname the Latin word Pentecost, or Pentecostal, they nicknamed Pentecost, that feast was being fulfilled with a great outpouring of Joel chapter 2. It was a fulfillment of scriptures. One of the fulfillments our Mashiach fulfilled besides Pesach and unleavened bread. We are waiting for the Feast of Trumpets now. But getting back to this. So they say they use this, see, upon the first day of the week, they were gathered together. So we're going to gather together too. No, dude, chill out. Day does not exist. It's a German word. It's not even in the Greek. When you go to your King James, as I'm reading it here, day is italics. Even in the King James translation, it's italic, telling you it's not in the original Greek. So what are you doing? You're repeating something, a rumor. You want to be caught up, so you feel good being a part of that denomination system that's eventually chain linked to the Pope. No matter where you at, it's linked to the Pope because you got these offshoot doctrines. And you know, there's groups that are totally against the Catholic Church, but then when I go to their Circe, they got a steeple, 3-stage steeple, which is Nimrod. You know, it's all paganism. It's all related to the Catholic Church. And they say, wait a minute, you're preaching against the Pope and the Catholics, but yet you got a steeple and you got 3-degree step to it. You know what I mean? I said, what is this, dude? You're a part of it. Don't even know. No, we're not. Yes, you are. They don't even realize it. And you can actually go to those buildings and look for the cornerstones in the buildings. Somewhere, one of the corners is usually facing the east. One of the corners will have a marker of Mason ritual that they put in the first cornerstone for those buildings that got steeples. Okay? So, let's look at the final last one, and we're going to go to 1 Corinthians chapter 16. But remember, in Corinthians Aleph, chapter 16, verse 2, the word does not exist. So there is no foundation for them to have worship on the first day of the week, which is in Gregorian calendar, Sun God Day. Okay? Sun Deity Day. So let's go to Corinthians, as you're going to be going in the screen too and seeing it. We're doing this because we want you to see it. We love you. We want you to see what's really going on. Your pastors, your evangelists, your prophet liars, they see this stuff. They read it. But they, with the art of assimilation, the art of infallibility. You never heard those words? Those are the words you get when you get your masters and your degrees in these denominations. It's the art to see L-O-R-D and keep saying L-O-R-D, but no, it's Yod-Heh-Wah-Heh. El Shaddai, El-Roeh. It's the art, like practicing an art, to see G-O-D and know it's a German pagan deity, but continue to say it and know it'll say either El, Elohim, Elohim. It'll have other words under, but it's an art of infallibility. It is the disguise they get when they get the diploma. Now you graduated from the art. And you got the credentials to teach. And we'll give you permits and all the stuff to build your building. And then like when I got my Baptist manual, it had a chapter specifically for Masons. It had another chapter specifically for, and hey, don't look at me that way, fellow Baptist brothers. If you've been ordained under the Southern Baptist movement, you know what I'm talking about. You got chapters for the Secret Society of Masons. They worship Moloch and Baal. And you got a chapter there that shows you how to construct your building, set up the pews, put the wood almost like in a courthouse, separating the people with a choir, all set up like a legal system, all set up in certain pews, the building built to the east and the west and all that stuff. And you don't realize that what are you doing? You're building a building of Masons. You're building a building of pagan worship to the sunrise. You're building a building of garbage. That's why I would never buy an old Christian building. I just rent a commercial building. You know what I mean? Clean it up and fix it up, pray it up and use it. Because I don't want no curse inherited all the way down into, and I'm going to, I could clean it up, brother. Oh, it's a great building. It's got the kitchen. It's got the permits and zoning. Oh, we'll wash it in the blood, they say. Come on. The Torah, the right ruling says, we're supposed to make toilet houses out of those buildings. The scripture, they would tear down the building and gut it, and then they turn around and make a toilet, private or public toilet house out of those places of pagan worship. Forever cursed. Because all the pagans can't even clean a toilet house either. Just like it all believes, they believe that a bathroom is a bathroom, it's unclean. Even in other religions, they believe the same. You can't refurbish it, okay? So in chapter 16, verse 2, for I determined not to know anything among you, save, no, wait a minute, 16. I went to chapter 2, I'm sorry. I want to read it with along with what you're seeing in the scriptures in front of you. Upon the first day of the week, let every one of you lay by him in store, as it says G-O-D, it's not there, as you see in the italics, has prospered him, that there be no gathering when I come. And when I come, whomsoever you shall approve by your letters, them will I send to bring you freedom unto Jerusalem. Okay, not libertarians, the goddess liberty, like the Statue of Liberty. Okay, let's read that again. And I'm going to tell you what goes on in Jerusalem, and when you live there and you see what's going on in the truth. Upon the first, the only word there is that it has kata and it has mia. So upon and first is there. Upon first, day does not exist. That's a German word. It has Shabbaton, Sabbath, or Shabbaton. It says it gives reference 7676, as you see on the screen, to the Sabbath. Let every one of you lay by him in store, as, you see the word G-O-D is not there, italics, not there. It's a German word, it's added later. Has prospered him. Now let me share something. When I go somewhere to minister, I do exactly like an Israelite. That's my bloodline. That's what I'm under my convictions. I renounced when I did my mitvah, my tevilah, my immersed in the living rivers of water, that when I came out, I stopped doing Christian stuff. One of the stuff is I don't have offerings when I go speak somewhere as a guest speaker. Because in Israel, they don't do that. Even the synagogues, even the strictest or the leanest, they don't do that. They'll have a box in the back. If you want to put something in, fine. They don't watch around with some basket and worship the basket and have people feel it, make you try to make happy goosebumps for giving up your money. You know what I mean? None of that's going on. They give the money during the week. And they raise the money. If they raise it on a Shabbat, it's after the service or before the service, people throw it in. Everybody knows already. What's that? Oh, that's to give. Okay, I'm going to write a check and give. They don't have that raised. And they don't even open the box until after Shabbat or the next day. I've seen one place I went to, the rabbis didn't even open the box 3 days later. How many of you see those preachers? They're right. Everybody gone? Open the box. Count the money now. Put out the count. You know what I mean? Let's go play golf. Let's go to a movie. You know? The wives are saying, the first ladies, they call first lady. Yeah, they'll buy a new dress tomorrow. You know? And that's totally blasphemous. In Hebrew tradition, they can give on Shabbat, they can give any day. But money should not be exchanged. Let me explain. When my friends used to tip, one of my ex-rabbi friends, a beautiful brother, Ishak, he'll pick me up and we'll go to a feast or big synagogues or go somewhere and pray. And the first day I met him, I said, I forgot some money. He said, what do you need money for? The gas is full yesterday. You don't need money. It's Shabbat. Everywhere we go, there's going to be food. The gas is full. Everywhere we go, we're going to fellowship and celebrate and have fun. We're not, the stores are closed. What are you going to buy? I said, I'm sorry. Forgive me, brother. I forgot. It's a habit in America, And it reminded me the way it used to be in Los Angeles. In the Jewish community, Shabbat was Shabbat. In the areas all the way up to Brooklyn Avenue, they call Cesar Chavez today, all that was the marketplace for the Jewish markets, where you buy chickens alive, you get fresh eggs that still had chicken stuff, all the vegetables you got to wash, meat and fish are hanging right there on the street, old school style, okay? Didn't worry about radiation, zinc, and all that stuff from the dirty oceans. Didn't worry about it. You just take it home and wash it, and you're cool. And we had our Shabbat. The next day was the Christian Sabbath, they call Sunday. Did you know in the Christian churches in Los Angeles in the 50s and 60s and 40s and 30s, nothing was open. Stores weren't open. Gas stations were closed. They didn't even turn on a gas pump until 5 or 6 in the evening. So everybody had to get their cigarettes, their alcohol, their food, everything. They had to get their stuff on our Sabbath. We had to get our stuff on Friday and hold off till Monday. Because we had our Shabbat and then the Christians had their Shabbat. And even though the Christians had it wrong, you know what's amazing? They were doing a right ruling. They didn't carry money. They didn't buy or sell. They stayed in their Baptist congregations all day. Pentecost, forget it, 12 midnight. They're in there till everybody falls on the floor from dancing. You know what I mean? Nobody left the building unless they were going out to change clothes and take a shower and grab a snack and then come back. You know what I mean? Or put the babies to sleep somewhere. When it was safe to take your children right there in the grass and put them with a blanket in the shade, and you could come back 3 hours later, they're still there, not kidnapped. That's what it was for Christianity too. A Sabbath was a Sabbath to them, but it's not no more. Christians are backslid in their own Shabbats. In their own sun god day Shabbats, they're backslid. Spending money, going places, going to the movie, turning on worldly music, doing all the worldly stuff. I mean, we used to turn the radio on Sunday, and I want to listen to oldies because my Sabbath was Sabbath, and I want to listen to oldies on the first day of the week. Yeah, the Jew boys liked oldies but goodies too back then. You know what I mean? And so, but it was all full of Christian gospel music. The whole station, they wouldn't turn it on to 4, and eventually 10 years later, 2, 10 years later, 1. Now what happens when you go to LA or any city? You go parts of Texas, you go parts of the Bible Belt, you better get gas traveling. Most of those stations are closed. They even say, travel, weary traveler, pull over and spend Shabbat with them. This is Christians on their sun god day telling you ain't going to get gas, so you might as well come in service. You know what I mean? So I just shared that with you, how there's still a remnant of people that are sincere. Now, you could be sincerely wrong and do it on the wrong day because Sabbath means seventh day, but I'm here showing you that in the original Greek, it did not exist. Even in the Greek, let alone the Hebrew. Now, in Israel, it's the same way. And I remember, I'm still young enough and old enough to relate to you and remember how it was in our communities. Loma Linda was a dry county. Loma Linda, it was Sabbath. You ain't getting gas on Saturday. You ain't busting a grape. You ain't getting liquor. Nothing back years ago. All that's changed because sin has consumed even any little righteousness that Christianity thought they had back then. And I believe Yahuwah honored them at that point. But now, the times of this ignorance of Acts 17, he winked at. But now commands all men everywhere to repent and come to the knowledge of the truth. The unknown mighty one is Yahuwah, that has always been known to all men. That was the sermon of Shaul that day, to let them know, the Greeks, you even doubt and question that there's a mighty one, another mighty one of all of them, the unknown mighty one. They say the unknown God, but it's unknown mighty one. So I share this with you to let you know that in the right ruling, the first day of the week has no basis as a 2 or 3 witness as a fact. Because even with I'm using your King James, I'm using your East Sword. You could go to lexicons, you could go to Eaton, you could go to International Bible Dictionaries, you go to all those old professors. When I was years ago, I used to say, oh, these guys gone bad, they're teaching different. But then now I look at these etymologists, these professors, they were trying to give the people the truth, and they rejected them. And they're But they still go to their lexicons and dictionaries to get choice information. But when they see Sabbath is on the 7th Yom, when they see the feast are still active, when they see his real name, I mean, I'm telling you, my King Imus, when I go to it, in Luke chapter 1, chapter 2 twice, and John also, when it says Jesus, it has a reference number that goes to the middle, and it says 2424, Jesus, and then it says a referred root in Hebrew, 3091, Yahushua. In my King James, in your face, telling you his real name. And how many preachers, you preachers know this, see that, but you failed to speak it into your people because don't you quote, don't you preach it? There is no other name under Shamayim to be saved. There is no other name to be saved. Well, if there's no other name to be saved, then what are you doing with nicknames and Catholic Jesuit priest make-up names and focus the rudder to another direction, to the Vatican, with that name that has no meaning, that has a meaning only pointing to the false messiahs and the false Circes and the false garbage of the Roman Catholicism. If there is no other name to be saved, are you going to stake your salvation on this? Are you going to stake it and have your people continue to speak those pagan words and worship? And it's not heaven. Heaven is under the clouds. It's a Greek place of principality. That's a German word. It's supposed to be Shamayim, where he dwells. From the bottom all the way up to the top, to the greatest places of the galaxy, is Shamayim. I close now this, and I love you. I don't do this with hate and anger. Eagles Haven and HaRuachEliyahu'sChannel, we love the lost house of Israel. We love the Gorim coming in, grafting in. We love the Goy, the ethnic groups that are scattered and are being gathered. We know that many of you are in places of witchcraft, places of Circes, places of control of denomination to control you and dominate you and dictate you, that you can't freely study for yourself. We know you're trapped because we've been trapped too. But we felt inside something's wrong, and I'm going to keep reading and researching. I'm going to find out what course we're going at the end of the voyage and the trip. So I say to you with love, repent, come out of Babylon and every part of Babylon, and come to the house of Yasharel. Be grafted in through his blood that was shed on Calvary on that stake, not krus. That word was created in the year 1200. On that stake where he was put in the ground, his blood was shed. Come to know him, the true Messiah. He's open with true arms to accept you and be grafted in to the house of Israel. It's not a new denominational trick. No, it's the one that was always there, the Nazarenes. You can call yourself that if you want. I say it once in a while, but I just call myself from the house of Ephraim. But take heed to what I'm saying. In the Shem of Yahushua, go with Yahuwah, enjoy your Shabbat, enjoy your meal, enjoy your children today in Shabbat. Just watch them while you're sitting for Sabbath and resting. Don't go to a movie, don't go out and spend money. Just enjoy your time with your children and your family and your wife and your husbands, and just sit and read the word in fellowship and worship and have some good chill out rest. In the Shem of Yahushua, I close this service. Amen and Amen.